California's Golden Parks is made possible by Toyota, who is committed to keeping the air clean at all our beautiful parks with its hybrid Synergy drive technology. In vehicles like the innovative Prius, Highlander Hybrid, and the Camry Hybrid, lower emissions and higher gas mileage help hybrid Synergy drive vehicles create a minimal impact on the environment. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy another one of California's Golden Parks.
Hello everybody, I'm Huell, and here we are in the Sierra Nevada mountains in Northern California. We're near the community of Truckee. We are east of Sacramento and a little west of Reno. This is an absolutely beautiful part of our state, and we have come here not only to soak up some of this beauty, but to spend the day in one of California's golden parks. During the winter months, historically, this part of California is one of the coldest and snowiest, with snow depths measuring in feet, not inches. And we're looking at this historic snow footage right now to remind us just how much snow we're talking about. Now, we were there on a beautiful summer afternoon, and it was hard to even imagine the whole place covered with 20 feet of snow. But as we soon discovered, there's a direct relationship between snow and this particular state park. Okay, here we are. I'm standing with Gail and Andrea, and your titles are?
Park Interpretive Specialist.
Park Interpretive Specialist. We're here at Donner Memorial State Park, and let's get right to it because there's a great story here. It's kind of a long and convoluted story. But let's start by telling the abbreviated form of the story of the Donner Party.
Yes, well, actually the Donners and the Reeds started out first together. They were neighbors. They joined the wagon trains around Independence, Missouri with a lot of people that were immigrating in 1846 to come out here to acquire land. It was pre-gold rush. They were on the immigrant trail and they were running a little behind, and what would happen is that they decided to try a shortcut that had
when they got to this area right here.
But yeah, before they got here at Fort Bridgers, where they actually decided to go on the shortcut called Hastings Cutoff. And it was supposed to have been short, but it actually cost them about 3 weeks.
And that 3 weeks was vital to this whole story. It got them 3 weeks behind.
Yes, it was. They ran out of supplies. By the time they actually they had to go through 2 deserts, major deserts. And by the time they got to what we know as Reno or Truckee Meadows, another thing that happened was they rested a week. If they could have gotten up and gone right away, we might not be here to tell this story, but they weren't able to do that.
And what happened when they got to this spot, still heading west to present-day California?
Well, the snows, unfortunately for the Donner Party, came early that year. And there was a cabin that was already existing here from the Stevens, Townsend, Murphy party. So they attempted to try to make it over the summit, but they weren't able to make it over. And on around November 3rd or so, there was a snowstorm that caused them to return back here, and it actually was the reason that we think that they were stuck here. I think they thought they could get out, but they couldn't. So the Breen family moved into the cabin that was Moses Schallenberger's, and then the other members that were around here built a double cabin that the Graves family and Mrs. Reed and her children lived in, and then the Murphy-Eddy family built a cabin.
So basically, the Donner Party got stuck right here for the winter. They got snowed in.
That's right.
And that's where the real controversy and the reason the word Donner Party is so notorious and the reason so many people know it. When they were stuck here for 4 or 5 months, out here in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of 20 or 30 feet of snow, something very controversial happened.
Well, Unfortunately, to survive, some of the members had perished a couple of months into their stay here in the mountains, and they ended up resorting to cannibalism to stay alive. So this monument that you see behind us is basically a dedication to the pioneers and to the Donner Party that risked their lives coming across the United States to find a better life, and they were heading for Sacramento and Sutter's Fort.
So the cannibalism, which is what all the jokes are made about and the reason a lot of people know about the Donner Party, that was just a small part of the story, and that's something that happens in lots of horrible situations. They're just trying to stay alive and keep the kids alive and keep the family alive. You're now turning this story around and making this Donner story a story of the triumph of the human spirit, because they survived in the middle of all of this. Let's walk down here, because this is the monument that is literally has been erected to that spirit.
Yes, this is the, it's known now as the Pioneer Monument, but it was built to honor the Donner Party members. Mm-hmm. And if you look at this pedestal here, from the base to the bottom of the statues, that's 22 feet. That indicated the depth of the snow of 1846-47.
Wait a minute, the snow was up to the top of what today is the pedestal.
Yes.
So they were surviving in 22 feet
yes.
of snow here.
Yes, and that's why this story and what happened here is so incredible. I think it's unique in our pioneer history because these people survived some of them from November through March. The last survivor left here in April, mid-April. It's amazing that anybody survived this. And the women and the children, over half of the members survived, and they were the women and the children.
There were 90 of them all together.
Right.
And how many survived?
Well, about half survived, and something that is really important to remember, or an incredible thing to think about, is 40 of those people were under the age of 18.
Wow.
So that was the mothers taking care of their children. The first people to die were single men. And the people that lived in the greatest numbers were the women who had children.
Looking at this monument, and it's placed supposedly on the site of one of the cabins where they spent the winter. Well, the cabin must have been totally covered in snow.
Oh yes, we've got accounts of snow steps, and this cabin right here was supposed to be where the Breen family was, and that's why they wanted to build the monument on that. And
snow steps would have had to gone down.
Yes, yes.
Now this is strange too. Let's walk right over here, because this is what I find very interesting, just looking at it for the first time. This is a very strange inscription on here. Could somebody read this to me?
Sure, it says, "Virile to risk and find, kindly withal and a ready help, facing the brunt of fate, indomitable and unafraid." And basically what it means is that people were taking a risk. They were risking their lives coming across the United States of America. They were looking for facing death, basically, and being unafraid to do that by taking their families across and making a new life for themselves.
Okay, now we've come inside the Immigrant Trail Museum, and a great little museum it is too. And I love this first case because it shows in great detail just how big a deal it was to have this statue erected here. What's the story on that?
Well, the local citizens, along with the native sons and daughters of the Golden West, decided to build a monument to the Donner Party. Mm-hmm. And it took them about 18 years to get it completed.
To raise the money.
To raise the money, which in those days, it was $35,000 that it cost. And that was a lot of money for those days.
And what's interesting is down here, these little vials down here. What's inside these vials, and why are they important?
The local citizens decided to do a little excavation. Inside these vials are bits of the Murphy Cabin site. It's a sill log, and they sold them for $1 to help fund the monument.
So they would sell these little vials of one of some of the remains of one of the cabins that the Donner Party had stayed in to just average citizens throughout the state.
To raise money to build the monument. And they actually found some of these bottles later in history, and we sold them here at the museum for a number of years.
And I'm sure there are little bottles like this tucked away in people's
Yep.
attics
Oh, yes.
all
Yeah.
over California, because
Absolutely.
they probably sold thousands or
Yeah.
tens of
and
thousands.
they might not even know where they came from. If the tag is fallen off or something, you might have one in your attic and not even know what it was from.
Wow. So the statue was put up in 1906. These pictures show it being transported out here from Oakland
Right.
by rail car.
Yes.
And then you've got this great museum with all kinds of exhibits in it that kind of talk about the history of the whole area. But down here, this really kind of gives you an idea. Is this like what one of the wagons of the Donner Party would have looked like?
That is a wagon similar. There were lots of different styles of wagons, and this is just one style that immigrants might have used. This is a replica, and inside you could see everything that a pioneer might have needed to make their journey.
How many wagons were in the Donner Party? Do we know?
23.
23
Yeah,
that made it
23.
all the way across the plains, all the way over the Rockies, and into California.
Well, some of them were left behind out in the desert, yeah, because they couldn't quite make it. There was
So they kept
they
getting
kept
fewer
yeah,
and fewer in number.
Yeah, as they arrived here, there were just a few left. The Donner families were some of the ones that had their wagons left when they got to this area.
Boy, they must have been crowded in those wagons, because there were 90 of them there.
Well, you know, Hugh, it's interesting. In a lot of the movies, you see people riding in the wagons, and that really didn't happen. That's something Hollywood has made up for us. Really, people walked. The only people that got to ride in the wagons were women who were having babies or people who were ill.
And they just
Everybody
had their
else,
supplies in
That's
it.
right. Everybody else walked, even the children.
Wow.
So,
Now this is neat, because now these are actually some artifacts from the actual Donner Party.
yeah, you'll see some gloves, and there's a glove box. The shawl was one of the members of the Donner Party.
So this glove,
pot-
the glove box,
Right?
the shawl.
The shawl.
What about the watch?
The watch, too. Everything in this case belonged to members of the Donner Party.
The gun?
The gun, too. As a matter of fact, the gun was one that probably shot the one bear that was killed while the Donner Party was here.
That gave them a lot of meat.
That gave them meat, well, for 90 people, maybe meat for a few days, so.
And over here, this next case has lots of stuff in it, including a salt and pepper shaker, a pair of glasses, another rifle. So these things are real collector's items when you can find them.
Yeah, and you can't find any artifacts really anymore, so this is it, what you're looking at in these cases, and then things that maybe family members might still have.
Yeah, this
Yes.
is all that's left.
We're lucky to have this.
This is interesting over here, because this shows how hard it was to get up and over the mountains. They literally had to take the wagons apart and pull them up over the mountains.
Yes, and this might have happened a number of times. They could have done this in the Wasatch Mountains in Utah. In here, these people spent a lot of energy getting here.
Yeah.
And you think over 2,000 miles, it's incredible. It's totally incredible.
That any of them got here at all.
Yes.
I mean, think about taking apart your car. Let's say you're packed to go camping, and you think about having to take everything out of your vehicle, put it on the side of the road, take the top of your car off, roll the wheels up the wagon, and then put it all back together.
Wow. Now over here, this is what California school children really get turned on to, because they study this story, don't they?
This is the story of Patty Reed's doll, and Patty Reed was one of the children in the Donner Party. And this is a replica of her doll. The real doll is located at Sutter's Fort.
Now, what's the significance of Patty Reed's? Is this Patty Reed
That's
right
Patty
here?
Reed right there.
So
yes.
she was a little girl
She
when
was
she
8.
was okay.
She was
and
8.
what's the significance of this little doll here?
Well, she had this doll hidden in the folds of her dress, and she told the doll her story every day, and it made her feel better, and it gave her somebody to talk to. And so she kept that doll hidden because she was afraid they were going to take it away from her, because they had to leave most of their belongings behind. And at the very end of the journey, she brought her doll out and showed it to everybody and said, "Here is my doll. I've had her the whole time."
So she survived this.
survived.
And this doll story is one of those great stories
doll
that
helped
kind
her
of
through.
captures the imagination, especially of school children when they study
That's
this.
right.
Puts a human face on
Well,
the
it's
story.
the one toy that she had. When everybody thinks of leaving everything behind, and maybe kids thinking of choosing one toy to take with them, and this was her toy.
Now that we're outside walking down this trail, and I gotta tell you, when you come to this park, you gotta know what you're looking for. Some of your stuff is kind of obscure. You pointed out and got very excited about telling me about this log right here, this tree actually that's been cut off. What's the story on that?
Well, this is suspicious that it could be one of the trees that would still be standing that was left from the time that the Donner Party was here.
And it shows how deep the snow was. They would have had to dig down to cut it that far down.
Yeah, and you can, there's hatchet marks on it, and it's been dated, and it's old enough to be one of the trees. Most of the trees that you see are younger than when the Donner Party was
There's
here.
some amazing pictures in the museum of these, I guess, that were made back in the early 1900s of the stumps that show where they would have had to cut the trees either to make the cabin or for firewood or whatever, and it just shows you how deep that snow was. This is such a beautiful park, such a nice area, and it's just right off the freeway with thousands of people going by every day. Nowadays, it's used for what? Lots of camping, lots of campsites here?
Yeah, we have a campground here. We have about 150 sites, and they all have tables and barbecues. We have restrooms and showers. It's a great place to camp because you are within walking distance to the lake.
Lots of kids come here to study the Donner Party. Is this a big place for school kids to take visits?
Yeah, we get hundreds of school kids every year coming through the museum to learn about the Donner Party story, and we get hundreds of kids coming up to camp with their families, and it's a real nice place. There's a lot of things to do here.
It's such a beautiful area. It's hard to go back and think of what a tragic area this was, because in today's world, just walking like this and looking, everything's so beautiful and tranquil.
I know. We think about that often working here. Gail and I have talked about this a lot, how what they went through and what an awful thing it was for them, but how many people come here now and just enjoy this park on a daily basis. In the wintertime too, cross-country skiing and snowshoeing.
Boy, this is such a beautiful, beautiful place. A lot of history happened right here. Is this it?
This is the site. This is the site of one of the Donner Party members' cabins.
This is the site we saw the drawing of.
Yes, yes, it
so
is.
the cabin would have been built right into this side of the rock? How do we?
We think that the cabin wall, this was the west wall and also the fireplace of the rock. And the excavation showed post holes, so we basically know the dimensions of it.
And this is the list of all the names, all 93
of them, actually.
Of them. And how many of them would have been in this cabin?
Well, this cabin in particular had, we think at the very beginning, 16 people, 2 families. It was crowded, and it was a cabin that was probably makeshift, and it was built with no windows, just an opening for the door. It was kneaded with mud, so when they would have fires, it kind of got damp in here. So it was a pretty hard condition for these people.
We're talking about basic living conditions.
Very basic.
And the floor of this cabin was probably wet most of the time the members were camped here, because as the fires warmed up the interior of the cabin, the snow on top, which was just skins, would have melted slightly and been dripping down.
Oh, what a miserable situation.
It was. We have some accounts of Tamsin Donner and George Donner's girls coming over here and coming into this cabin, and it would take their eyes about an hour to adjust to the darkness.
No light in here.
No light. It wasn't the best situation, but at least they had covering.
Yeah. Are you all listening to this?
Oh yeah.
You're getting the free tour right here.
That's
Where are
right.
you all from?
We're from Michigan.
Had you heard about the famous Donner Party?
Yeah.
What had you heard about it?
Just that they had different things go on, and there's cannibalism and everything else.
See, they hear the cannibalism thing. We're trying to get away from the cannibalism thing. It happened, but it also is a real story of perseverance and survival, because over half of them survived.
Oh yeah, it was amazing how they could just live the way they did compared to how we live now.
Okay, we are ending up this adventure back where I started it. When I came here earlier today, I stopped here just because it was a beautiful spot. Now I understand it's not only beautiful, it's historic as well.
Yes, this area is known as China Cove, and this actually was a camp for the Chinese that were building the railroad for the Central Pacific.
Back in
1868 it was completed here.
So there are lots of layers of history in this area of California, not just the Donner Party, but the Chinese. Wasn't there a lot of timber? The timber industry was here.
Logging, ice industry. It's very famous for its ice. Before the refrigerator, this was a major area where they shipped ice all over the United States.
Because this lake in the wintertime, and certainly when the Donner Party was here in 1846, in that cold, cold winter, this was solid, thick ice.
Yes, in fact, they weren't even able to fish. And we know they had fish hooks, but this was covered with snow. And when the rescue party members came here, they couldn't even find the Donner members until they saw smoke coming up a chimney. That was their only indication.
And there was so much snow and ice on here, they couldn't even break through to do any fishing.
No, they couldn't. And they
All right,
tried.
now there's something else we want to look at here too.
Well, also what you're looking at here is right straight in front of us is what's known as Donner Pass. Right.
That's
where
what they were
V
trying
is.
to go through.
This is what they were trying to get over, and they, had passed here. They got within a mile of the summit, and then they had to turn around and come back to this spot because they couldn't cross because there was too much snow.
So if they had been able to get through that pass, the Donners would just have been another one of countless thousands of wagon trains coming into California.
That's right, and there were hundreds of wagon trains that came before the Donner Party and hundreds that came after. They were just famous for getting stuck.
Yeah. What a wonderful place, full of history, and today it has a whole nother life.
Well, there's just a multitude of recreational opportunities. We see kayakers here today, swimmers, water skiers, sea-doers, fishermen, fisherwomen, everyone.
Fishermen and fisherwomen,
right.
good, good.
It's a great place to come and learn the history of your state and to come and have some fun as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we have done today. Thank you very much. This is such an interesting and beautiful part of our state. Donner Pass, Donner Lake, Donner Trail.
Yes.
And of course, we ended up right here with Donner Memorial State Park, which not only is a beautiful park, a great place to visit and to study our state's past history, all of it combined together makes this definitely one of California's golden parks. Goodbye, everybody.
I love you, California. You're the greatest state of all. I love you in the winter, summer, spring, and in the fall. I love your fertile valleys, your dear mountains I adore. I love your grand old oceans, and I love a rugged shore. Where snow-crowned golden Sierras keep their watch for the valleys blue. It is there I would be, in a land by the sea, every breeze bearing rich perfume. It is here nature gives of her rarest. It is home, sweet home to me. And I know when I die I shall breathe my last goodbye for my sunny California.
Hello, everybody. I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed our visit to historic Donner Memorial State Park, high up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. If you'd like to go on this adventure again or share it with your family and friends, it's available on video cassette. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.
This presentation of California's Golden Parks was made possible by Toyota, who wants you to get out and see these incredible parks for yourself. Toyota is committed to preserving their natural beauty with its hybrid synergy drive technology in vehicles like the Prius, Highlander Hybrid, and Camry Hybrid. Lower emissions and higher gas mileage help hybrid synergy drive vehicles have a minimal impact on our natural wonders. We'll see you next time on California's Golden Parks.